Hey guys, quick content warning. This video contains discussions about depression, anxiety, self-hate, and suicidal thoughts. My goal in sharing this part of my journey is to be open, honest, and hopefully help others who may be struggling. If you're experiencing any of these, please just remember you're not alone. What's up, everyone? My name is Devin Reno. I am an independent wrestler, a surgical technician, and one half of the Pretty City Express. And today is part two of my journey in pro wrestling so far. Um, this we've got kind of like the prologue, the prequel, I guess, out of the way of where I originally tried it. I went to the best school in the world and still quit, and I failed. And I I'm not gonna say it's. I like talking about that side of it, but I don't shy away from it because what you do when you fail, I believe, defines who you are as a person, right? It's super easy to be grateful and to be like nice and to show good character when you win. Of course it is. But when you fail, that's kind of where people's true colors come out. And when I quit wrestling originally, my true colors came out in the sense that I was extremely depressed. I hated myself. I I didn't take it out on anyone around me, but I wasn't fun to be around because nobody likes being around like the person who doesn't love themselves, right? Like that's hard. Yeah, anyways. Um so as a I guess viewer discretion, we'll get into it, but this video is going to deal with heavy topics such as depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, self hate. If any of those things are triggering to you or what have you, then skip it. It's a part of my story, and I'm not here to shy away from anything. I'm here to just explain my story so that hopefully, or in the hopes of it helping someone or a couple of people. I don't know, but let's talk about it. So, 2020. Okay, I went to Storms in 2016, ended 2016, beginning of 2017, and uh, upon returning to Arizona, I never pursued pro wrestling again. I worked at a movie theater until I got fired in 2019. And I decided that personal training was my new dream. And I was going to build this business and change a bunch of people's lives. And actually, one of the the points in my head that uh, convinced me that this is it is okay, I failed at my dream, but now my goal is to bring others to theirs, which is still part of my goal. I still want to be a part of people's journeys to where they go, man, he really helped me with this. Or, you know what, I saw this and it helped me work through ABC, whatever. That's still one of my goals. And that's one of the goals of this channel. That's one of my goals of me as a person, of my life. And when I was going through this depressive episode, which lasted a couple years, I remember thinking, if I if I kill myself now, nobody's gonna have anything good to remember me by. I maybe they did, but I didn't have a high opinion of myself then. And so I decided I'm not going out until I know that people are going to remember me for good. And they're going to remember that I impacted them in some good way. And so that became my goal in personal training. I loved going to the gym. I loved fitness. And I saw that as the avenue to do that. So 2020, the world shuts down, and I decide to watch WrestleMania because Peacock was having like a month for free. I saw the ad for it, and I was not doing anything else, and I couldn't afford going anywhere. So the free month of Peacock it was, and I saw Bray Wyatt versus John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse, and it changed the trajectory of my life because I'm a big horror movie guy, and I like film. I love just really any entertainment, but horror movies especially. And it was like I had never even seen The Fiend before, really. So seeing these two worlds collide was like eye opening for me. I was like, holy shit, what is this? I want to do something like this. I want to create something like this. And so I got the bug again. And I remember I was in a relationship at the time, and I told my girlfriend then, I think I want to give pro wrestling another shot. And they were extremely supportive. Um, but I didn't tell my family because I had already quit, and they had heard about this my entire life, how I wanted to do this, and then I went and did it and quit. And I knew, so that was April 2020, and I had too much respect to just go to a school. So I said I would train the rest of the year as if I was getting ready for it. And then at the end of next year, if I still wanted to do it and I was in shape enough, I would go and find a school. So I researched what was around in Arizona. There was the Arizona Wrestling Federation, and then that's where I thought I was going to go. And one of my clients actually was like, "Hey, like you like wrestling?" And we started talking about it. They go, "Oh, my brother wrestles, and he wrestles at the Arizona Pro Wrestling Training Center." And I was like, "Oh, is that the one in Glendale?" And she was like, "No, it's the one in Mesa." I'm like, "Well, that's way closer to my house. Let me look." She goes, "It's actually really, really good. It's a really good school. It just started a couple years ago." And I remember I researched it, and they had a tryout and they had an interview process, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's intimidating, but that's cool." And so I think that was around September, and I decided, okay, at the end of the year, I'm gonna go interview with them and just see what's up. And I worked through. I kept working. I got in better shape. I was already in good shape, but I got in better shape because I knew wrestling was tough. And I scheduled my interview with them at the end of the year 2020, so December or January 2021, I couldn't remember. But I went there, I met Don Vitale and John Wolfgang, and I told them, guys, I was debating on whether to tell them or not, and I said, I don't know if I should tell you, but I just want to be as open as possible. I went to the Storm Wrestling Academy in 2016, so 5 years prior. Um, I don't know anything. I'm not going to act like I know anything. I'm not going to act like I'm already a wrestler. But also, I don't want you guys finding out and being like, what the hell, dude? Why did you tell us? So I was just straight up. I said, I want to be treated as a day one, whatever. And I don't consider myself having any experience because it was 3 months. And yeah, I might remember a couple things and I'm athletic enough to, have muscle memory, but I don't want any like weird treatment because of it. And so they were super cool about it. They invited me to the tryout. I did great at the tryout, and the first 6 weeks you can't touch the ring. So I trained for 6 weeks outside the ring. I got invited to the ring, and I remember I didn't talk. I didn't say a single word for 3 months. And the first time I said anything, I put a huge target on my back because we had like these meetings as a school sometimes, and one of them was we had just watched a local independent show, and people were fired up because they were like, "Man, these guys aren't as good as us, or we work way harder, and we're like the hardworking school, blah 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 blah." And I said, I feel that as soon as you start telling yourself that you work hard enough or you work hard, you start believing that you work hard enough. And that breeds complacency. And I said, I love this place. I don't want it to grow complacent just because you think you work harder than the people down the street. And some people liked what I had to say. Some people hated what I had to say. But I told everyone, I understand that this puts a target on my back because I'm calling everyone complacent because they're telling everyone that they work hard. Yet they're not, they're like starting to slack in some drills. And that's when I think I first started to make an impact at the school. Because from then, I was 3 months in. I was still nobody, even at the school level. And people challenged me, and I rose to every challenge, and I worked really hard. And over the next couple months, I started to prove myself more and more. And then I got a spot on a battle royal show, which was Phoenix Championship Wrestling's first show back. I got a spot to work the battle royal, which was super cool. Um, and from there, I remember the battle royal happened, awesome. I didn't consider it a debut because I was a body in a battle royal. Well, from there, I sat Dom down and I said, "Hey, I have a couple things I want to tell you." And I said, "I know I'm not marketable. I know that I'm kind of just a guy right now." I said, I'm still going to work really hard, but if you want to keep me off of shows, I promise you by January, I'm going to be worthy enough to market. I'm going to have good gear. I'm going to be a way crisper talent in the ring, and I'm going to look better physically. And he was like, dude, I think you're selling yourself short. He's like, you can always improve for sure, but just we might have something for you in October. Great. So October comes around. The battle royal was in August, so 2 months later, and he tells me I'm wrestling CLAS, who was like the guy that I looked up to at the school. He was the guy who looked like a wrestler. He acted like a wrestler. He was a psychologist in real life. He had worked really hard to be where he was, and I he took me on the road for my first couple shows where I wouldn't wrestle, but I would go hang out and meet people. And I just would pick his brain. And he helped me a lot. He became like a wrestling big brother to me. And I remember they told me I was wrestling him, and he was being touted as like the undefeated guy in Arizona who they were building up to be their top guy for our promotion. And I remember telling him, like, I'm sorry they put you with me, dude. And he was like, what? I go, I'm just a student. Like, you're coming off a match against Remy. They're building you up. Remy Marcel, a Vegas guy who is the fucking man. I love Remy. And he's a great wrestler. He's been around for a while. He's got like a good connection with the crowd. He had just wrestled CLAS. So now CLAS goes from him to me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I know you want more for yourself. And I'm going to deliver. Like, I'm going to step up to the plate. But I'm sorry that you have to wrestle a student. And he was like, shut the hell up, dude. He was like, dude, we're going to have a good time. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun match. And um, I had just told my parents that I was wrestling again, except my pops. And if you remember in my last video, my pops was the guy who paid for my tuition to go to the Storm Wrestling Academy. But we had a falling out towards the end of 2020, I think. And so we hadn't talked. And it's October, so it had been almost a year. And I, I'm I was super nervous about the match, and I'm like working my ass off to not let CLAS and Dom down because they trusted me in that spot. Well, I noticed that my mental health had declined or was declining, and um, the week of the show was on Saturday, and that Sunday I kind of had like a break. I had just broken up. My relationship had just fallen apart. I I go through depressive stages, and so this was kind of the last one before I had a real good handle on it and I could sense it. And to me, it came out of nowhere. But looking back, a ton of signs were there that I can now like plan for and adjust and react accordingly. But I didn't have that perspective back then. And that Sunday, I had like a complete breakdown. I was broke. I was at I all of the things that were going wrong, or that could go wrong were going wrong, except the match that I had. Um, but I think that just added more pressure to me because that Sunday I drove up north to Payson. Um, I had I got a hotel room and I brought my kit, and I remember saying like I can't fucking do this anymore. And I left my phone at the house and I just said I'm gonna drink until I black out and whatever happens happens. Going with the intent that I didn't want to come back. And I remember I checked into the hotel. I went to the grocery store, and when I came back, there was this family who was checking in, who I like said hi to as I walked past them with uh, my bags of alcohol. And I remember when it got really, really dark that night, I was like, how can I do this to that family? That I'm just gonna traumatize those kids because they're gonna have the ambulances and the police come in and they're gonna wonder what's going on, and then their parents have to explain what happened, and then they have to live with that, and that's so selfish. And then I started thinking about how if you are in that dark place, I'm not saying you're being selfish, but that's what helped me. Was that's the last thing I want to be on this planet. Like I said, I want to give back and I want to learn. Well, I am learning, but I want to be able to like to give people reasons to keep going. And I was, for saying that was my mission, I was being hypocritical because I wasn't allowing myself to give back. I was taking that away. And so I remember thinking about that family. And then I remember thinking about the match on Saturday and how my parents had to deal with um, this kid who their entire life would beat up stuffed animals and fake fake fight his sisters and get in trouble and put them through all of this unnecessary stress. Yell "suck it" in the living room, and for them to never see that come to fruition again was selfish. And I started thinking about how my pops didn't even know I was wrestling. Um, Again, how selfish. And so that, along with the fact that two of the people who had become my biggest supporters, Dom and CLAS, I would be leaving them scrambling the week of. And just like, again, how selfish. And I'm not saying if you're having these dark thoughts or you don't want to be here that you're selfish. What I'm saying is find somebody or something that's bigger than you that you can deem worthy living for. Because that night, that's what saved me. All of those things coming up in my head and all of those things and me telling me that I was being selfish is actually what saved me. Um, and the next day, Monday, I went to Dom and I said, we have to talk. And I told him, this is where I'm at. This is what's going on in my life. Uh, I, if I could, I'd like to be here every single day because if I'm not at the school, I don't know what's going on with me. And I don't trust myself outside of it. And he was like, absolutely. And so I was there every single day. And um, I printed out the poster of me in class. And I remember I grabbed 2 tickets and I stopped by my pop's house and I rang the doorbell. I put them on the doorstep and I walked away. And he was so proud and so happy to have heard from me. And him, my dad, my mom, all went to the show, along with like so many other friends and family, and they got to see just the beginning of what I think my true calling was. And I remember they were all like, "Okay, we get it now. Like, this is you. This is like, you look so happy out there, and you look so comfortable." And I remember when I came through the curtain after my match, I wasn't happy, and that scared me. And I was like, "That's okay. Like, look at how happy I made everyone else." And if that's my purpose right now in life and that's why I'm here, then that's what I'm going to do. And so I said, let me just make it to the next show, which was, I guess, the next day, but there was one in 2 weeks. So let me just make it to that. And then after that, I got hurt. And it was like, okay, I just have to make it to the next show after that. And that became the process in which I just said, I just have to make it to this booking, this date, this booking, this date. And then eventually I just started living again. And I started, like, the color seeped back into my life. I started becoming more fulfilled. I started experiencing happiness again. And slowly but surely, I actually wanted to live again. And I had dreams about a future. And going through that was necessary because now it gave me the foresight of, when I am feeling those emotions, okay, what are the behaviors that saved me last time? What do I need to think about? What are the thought patterns that I need to process? And how can I start not digging myself out of this hole, but how can I start preparing to be thrown in the hole? So that way, when I get there, it's not like, oh my God, my world is ending. It's like, okay, I've been here before. I know what to do. I'm just going to start climbing slowly and slowly, and it's going to feel dark for a while. And I'm just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I'll be out of the hole before I know it. And I'm going to be like, oh, wow, I like life again, before I trip and fall back in. But wrestling didn't save me, but the idea that I had people who I felt deserved to see me wrestle, and not in an arrogant way, but just like I had put them through so much annoyance growing up, that to check out early before they got the chance to see, I feel like would be kind of like a dick move. It's like the ultimate prank, right? Like, you dealt with 18 years of me doing all this, and then you don't even get to see me in sparkly tights wrestling. Joke's on you. But no, it gave me perspective that I needed in a really dark time. And so, if you are going through a dark time, like I talked about in the first video, wrestling's not going to save you. However, it can be the medium in which you dig yourself out. And so you need to understand that just because wrestling helped me in this regard, it wasn't because it made my life easier. It was because it gave my life purpose. And if you understand, okay, this is going to actually be way harder than just checking out, but it's going to be way more fulfilling. I think you can dig yourself out of anything. Any goal that you have, if you accept that it's going to be difficult, but also understand that the payoff is probably way more fulfilling than going through with your dark thoughts, you can overcome anything. I've been there. I've been in that hole. I know what it's like. I know how hopeless it can feel. And also, you can pull yourself out. So that match, the CLAS, literally was a second chance at rebuilding relationships with my family, um, living life, and I guess less important, but like realizing my dream. Like, I don't know who I am without wrestling now. As sad as that sounds, it's true. I know that I'm not going to tie my whole identity to it, but I do want it in my life forever. And I'm going to find ways to pivot, and make a career out of it somehow, one way or another, or be in the realm of it. Um, but yeah, so that those couple years were really tough, but I needed them in order to set me up for the rest of my life, I feel like. Which in the next episode, I kind of want to get into like just my first experiences on shows and maybe some funny stories, but what I learned from a lot of the veterans and mentors who have helped me out, and just like kind of finding myself because I didn't know who I was. Nobody knew who I was, especially me. And kind of how I think a good timeline would be that match with CLAS afterwards, like my kind of singles run. It's not a run, but my singles uh, run to teaming up with Freddie to then ultimately being paired up with CLAS and what that meant to me and how that kind of formulated. And then maybe in the fourth episode, we get CLAS to talk about our tag uh, so far. I think that'd be really fun. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm sorry that it got kind of dark, but again, I'm not proud of those moments, but I don't shy away from them because I feel like they make me who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. So um, I want to share, and I want to help as many as I can, and I it's therapeutic. So thank you for listening. I hope I was able to offer something for you, and I look forward to talking about the like craziness of being a wrestler on shows in the next episodes.